I call Tommy Shepherd, who's participating virtually and who has 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I add my congratulations to President Biden and Vice President Harris, and hope that this government will embrace the opportunities their election offers. After this week's urgent question on the government's failure to maintain an EU visa exemption for performers, everyone must now be aware just how big a kick in the teeth this is for our music industry. The Minister wrung her hands but had nothing to say about rectifying the situation. So when can we have a debate so that we can demand that the government go back to the EU and negotiate a new scheme? And keeping with the consequences of Brexit, let me turn again to fishing. Last week, the leader grabbed the headlines with his jokes about happy fish. I hope he will now take it more seriously. We need an urgent debate on protecting our fish producers from Brexit red tape, including a 6-month grace period and full compensation for the catches not landed and the lorry loads destroyed. Now, earlier this week, the House voted overwhelmingly to reject the government's plans to cut universal credit by £20 a week. We know that there is deep disquiet within the Tory party at this. Many simply bewildered at the government's planned assault on the very poorest. Given the many billions that have been spent in the wake of COVID, how can this clawback from the poor have any political or moral justification? We know that Opposition Day debates don't change government policy, so when will the government put its proposals before the House so that we can force it to do the right thing? And finally, in the week when the 19th Scottish Opinion poll reports majority support for independence, I ask again for a debate on this Parliament's response. Yesterday, George Osborne, a man whose intervention single-handedly boosted yes support in the last referendum, demanded that the government ignore democratic decisions. He seems to believe that if this union cannot be maintained by consent, it must be maintained by coercion. If this is becoming the government's view, surely this Parliament should discuss it.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As regards the musicians' requests, I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave to the shadow leader. What the British government asked for, what the British government offered was generous, and it was refused by the European Union. As regards my comments last week, well, at least I didn't joke about happy members of the SNP, because that really would have been a joke too far, and I don't think it's something that has ever yet been achieved. But perhaps one day, we live in hope, Madam Deputy Speaker, but I would reiterate the £23 million extra support for the fishing industry, the increased exclusive area for UK fishermen to use, the addition to quota that is coming, 15% uplift already, going to 25% within a 5-year period, and this enormous increase in our control of our fishing waters, which is going to repay, ultimately, the fishermen of the United Kingdom for the damage that was done to them when we joined the European Union. This is fundamentally important. On the universal credit, it was this government, under my right honourable friend, the member for Chingford, that introduced the universal credit and has allowed an extraordinary increase in support for the most vulnerable in society, including the £20 a week uplift, which came from this government. That's £1,000 a year. In addition, a £170 million winter grant scheme, £380 million in free school meal vouchers in the summer, increasing the national living wage, an extra £670 million for councils to help families pay their local bills, supporting the most vulnerable families with £165 million for the Troubled Families Programme. This government has shown its absolute commitment to the least well-off in society and has done its best in these very difficult times to provide the support is needed. But all ultimately, Madam Deputy Speaker, the right honourable gentleman wants to do every week is moan about the devolution settlement. The referendum was won by the Unionists in 2014. It was accepted that it would be for a generation. A generation is not a mere 6.5 years. The Scottish people made their choice, and he is still grumpy that they didn't make the choice that he wanted. This Parliament respects the free choice that the Scottish people made more than he does, and when the SNP is in such an awful muddle with its rows and disagreements with Mr. Salmond and Miss Sturgeon getting together like cats in a sack, if that's the people who fight, it is a most disagreeable spectacle, and that is why the union is something that we should all support and not leave it to the dangerous activities of the SNP.